Thanks so much for logging on today. Just in case there's any new faces here in the meeting, my name is Sam Camarena. I'm the manager of the CSU Advancement Academy. The Academy is, of course, the system-wide professional development program for all the areas of advancement. This session is building on the webinar that we had on May 4th, where we did a deep dive into the methodology for the CASE Insight survey on alumni engagement. In today's session, we're going to dive into the process for tracking engagement throughout the year and completing the survey instrument itself. Specifically, we're going to hear the processes from Cal State San Bernardino, Cal Poly Pomona, and Cal State Long Beach. These teams will share pretty informal presentations on their processes, and this is meant to allow you to hear a couple different approaches to inform your own if this is going to be the first time that you're going to be working on that survey. As a quick reminder, the Cal State universities will be required to complete the full CASE Alumni Engagement Survey. That means every question answered, starting with the 26-27 fiscal year, so the fiscal year that's about to start in July. And that survey for that fiscal year opens in the fall of 2027. There are going to be some additional technical trainings on accessing and using the CASE survey platform in the summer of 2027. And then your teams are also welcome to complete the survey this fall for the current fiscal year before the requirement goes into effect for the whole system. As you can see, the session is being recorded, and we will be posting the recording to the Advancement Academy's YouTube page where you could watch it together with the session that we had on the 4th. And of course, pass both recordings along to any colleagues who might need to see it or revisit it once you finally get into working on the survey. Now I'm just going to go over a couple quick housekeeping points before we jump into the presentations. Good idea to keep your participant window open and good opportunity to open that right now because we're going to ask everybody to make sure that your display name has your first and your last name as well as your university and any preferred pronouns. And as you all do that right now, I will do that also because I didn't get a chance to do that. Here we go. Perfect. Moving on. Throughout today's sessions, you will see that there's some presentations. Some folks will take questions throughout, but just in case folks are in the middle of something, it's preferred that you put your questions into the Q&A pod in Zoom. If it's not coming up right away on your menu, you want to go ahead and hit more, and then it should be one of the options there. So as you have whatever thought, we invite you to drop it into the Q&A. The Q&A is preferred over the chat because inevitably there'll be some conversation, some links put in the chat, so we might lose your question and we don't want to do that. Just so you all can see what's in store, here's the order of presentations, and each are going to be about 20 minutes, which then they'll be followed by about 8 minutes of Q&A. And then we'll do a quick wrap up at the end. If we have extra time, we can have additional Q&A or kind of group discussion with the group to compare notes in ways that we might approach the survey. At the end of the session, we'll also share a link to a short survey where you can give us your feedback on this session and let us know more or less how you feel ready or not to complete the survey or if additional training is needed. And with that, I will stop my screen share and turn it over to the team over at Cal State San Bernardino to begin their presentation. Thank you, team.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. We're so glad that you could join us to talk about the CASE Alumni Engagement Metrics Survey. I think Cal State San Bernardino is one of the 2 campuses that has been doing it since its very first iteration. So we have seen it go through many different transitions, and we can help you really figure out how to do that. My name's Crystal. I'm the Alumni Director. Jenna, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Jenna, and I am the Alumni Program Specialist.
Hi, all. I'm Monica Alejandre, AVP for Advancement Services and Operations, but I'm actually the cheerleader for Alumni Relations because they're amazing and they're the ones who made us change everything.
Monica and I are really just here to ride Jenna's coattails because she's really the one that gets into this data every single year. So she's going to have the best tips to share. So first, it feels like a very daunting process, and it is to start. But I promise after you start, it is so much easier to continue it on. The starting piece is really where everybody struggles. And again, we've been doing it since this first year, and it was really hard for us to conceptualize how to do this. So if you want to meet offline, if you need help, you want to talk through stuff, we're all here to help at any time that you need, even to connect our advancement services with your advancement services or your alumni with your alumni, or your alumni team with our alumni team. So the first thing that we did was we started meeting with our integral partners. So the way that we run our data is Alumni Relations tracks it. We give it to Advancement Services, who puts it into the database. And then they pull all of that data out of the database, which we use Lucian's Advance, and gives it to our institutional research. Institutional research is the one that runs all of the reports. Then it goes back through the other way. They give it back to Advancement Services, who supplies it to us, and we just plug in the numbers. So it's a lot of back end work on our part, but because we have great partnerships with Advancement Services and with IR, it helped a lot with doing those really complicated calculations that, frankly, Jenna and I do not have the training or the know-how of how to do. So step one, we met with them to talk about the survey, share what the requirements were, what we were looking for, how we get it done, and then we let the really good data people handle the really good data part. In step two, we started establishing guidelines for all of our data collections, and we base this off of the CASE definitions. CASE has very specific definitions, as you've seen, of what counts as volunteer, what counts as experiential, what counts as philanthropy. So we use that to establish our criteria for how we would track moving forward. In terms of roles, we broke it down as alumni were the ones who matched our programs to those different definitions. We assigned those categories using the guidelines, and then we created a ton of activity codes. And we use those because that's how we track the information in our database. We also started tracking activity codes where they would have the same code but change the year. So for example, we have a yearly day of service. Coyote Cares Day. So it's always CCD 26, CCD 27. So that way in subsequent years, we could just know what those data codes were. We just had to update the year and then we could pull out the information. We also established within our office a regular cadence for collecting data and sending it to Advancement Services. Data is no good if we're not actually submitting it to the people who keep track of it. We could do all the events in the world, but if we're not sending that to the advanced database, it's no good and we can't pull it out for the survey later. So please make sure that you stay on top of that. Advancement Services job was to upload the data when we gave it to them, which we do every couple weeks, I think, Jenna?
Maybe like once a month.
Once a month or so, or when we have an event. And then when the end of the year came, they ran reports based off of those criteria. Again, those activity codes that we had, the membership codes that we had, the philanthropy codes that we had, and then gave it to institutional research who combined and ran the combined data. Jen, anything you want to add there, or Monica?
Nope, you covered it, Crystal.
Okay. So then some things to think about. How are you quantifying communication? This is the hardest of all of the categories, in my opinion, because CASE would like to see two-way communication. So are you tracking if they received your newsletter, or are you tracking if they opened your newsletter? Are you tracking if they read it for a certain amount of time, or are you tracking if they respond to it? Those are 4 different ways to look at something that technically should be two-way. So just set your definition and go with it. Make sure that you're staying consistent as you do your thing so you know every year what you're doing. Jenna wrote a guide of what we count and what we don't, and we reflect on it because we do this once a year. So next year we look at it and we're like, what was that again? What did we do again? And so we have a very clear process of what it is that we're doing. Also, determine how your campus is going to count philanthropic participation. We know that there are many pockets of campus with lots of things going on that, although because this is being recorded, we'll just say we know it's happening even though we don't know it's happening, right? They're not going through the appropriate processes on campus so we can track and capture all of that. So our advancement services partner, Monica and her team, have been wonderful about ensuring that information is open and available. So if people want to do fundraising events, they know how to do it. And then as we hear about it, we make sure that we capture it in here. An easy example is also like gift in kinds. Our food pantry collects a heck of a lot of gifts from people who want to just drop off $5 or bought a box of top ramen, but don't necessarily track it. So Monica got them a way to keep a form that helps us be educated on what they're doing in those different spaces so we can count that as we move forward towards philanthropic contributions. Other things to think about is how often you record your participation. Is there a specific format that your advancement services wants that information in so they can upload it? We used to have a manual process where we would look up every single record one by one and attach an activity code. That was untenable for this type of process. So working with advancement services, they gave us an option to like batch upload, which I don't know if Razor's Edge will do that, but Advance will, that let us apply this activity code to this 300 people. And then that really took a burden off of our team and allowed us to be much more timely with all of those updates. So if you're not already closely connected to advancement services and have a very thorough understanding of how your database works, like now's the time. And then also, what are your next steps? As you build those tracking mechanisms, it's going to adjust over the course of the year. It's okay to be uncomfortable with that. It's okay to track it this way this year, realize that doesn't work and need to make adjustments for next year. Really, what we're all trying to show is growth. So use this year as your way to kind of test how you're counting that data, test how you're collecting information, what works for you, what works for advanced services, what's doable and what's not, and then adjust your processes in the following years. Anything to add, Jenna?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, as Crystal mentioned, that partnership, especially with advancement services, is so key to doing this process, and that so much of it at the beginning especially is auditing what you're already currently doing, seeing if there's anything extraneous, and really just narrowing it down to those definitions, as well as we talked about in next steps, really changing your tracking throughout the year to match those case definitions. That has really made a difference in our process. So before, of course, we were tracking attendance at events. Of course, we were tracking alumni satisfaction via surveys, and all of that is still really important. But as you start going through this process specifically for CASE, you're going to want to outline your events based on those definitions, so that at the end of the year, it doesn't all kind of catch up to you.
Again, as I mentioned at the beginning, the hardest part is getting started. Once you get started, it will be easier because you'll start to have an idea of what they're looking for and how to do it. So don't expect you're going to be perfect in the first year. Don't expect that it's going to all flow as nicely as you will. But I will tell you, how many years has this been around, Sam? 5 years, maybe?
Maybe
Sure, we'll say
closer to-
5.
Yeah, we'll say 5.
6, however many years. At this point, it's one email triggered by me and Jenna to our partners that says, hey, it's that time of year again. Here's our login information. Here is the deadline that we need it by, and it's all run at that point. So we've come from this place where we would have to meet every week or two to talk more about data and how we do it, to now it's auto-triggered, because we have such strong partnerships in place and because of the steps that we've taken to ensure that all of this runs smoothly. So you will get there. I promise you will get there. One of the biggest challenges is keeping consistent with data. Right now, we all have really great intentions of every month we're going to do this and every month we're going to do that. And then commencement comes up and you have 12 ceremonies like Noemi, or like something happens where you're just really busy and you're like, oh, well, wait. The longer you wait to do your data, the more difficult it will be to recall. So you have to be very, very disciplined about doing your data in the same consistent way and a very timely way to get it off of alumni relations plate onto advancement services, who then gets it right into the database. As Jenna mentioned, we also had to shift away from being so event focused and really evaluate our program for being much more nuanced, right? Experiential doesn't just mean like attending something, it's an experience. And also defining, if you are coming to a food packing party day, is that volunteering, or are you there because you're hanging out with your buddies? If you are coming to a mixer, what is the purpose of that mixer? Is the purpose of that mixer so that way we get you engaged to connect with students and then that's a volunteer? Or is it just to be social? So identifying where your programs fall within that kind of spectrum will be very useful and beneficial. Anything else, Jenna?
Yeah, just to add to that, as far as identifying your programs, it's been really helpful for us to lay out our programs on a yearly calendar and actually mark which ones are volunteer, which ones are experiential, just to be able to see at a glance, because I think, again, like Crystal said, we all have the best intentions and we all think that we're sort of hitting all these points. But when you really get down to it, you kind of have to analyze each of your programs and make sure that throughout the year you're having enough that you can then track that and then provide that for CASE.
Best practices under trends, make sure you're keeping those definitions consistent of the different ways that they outline volunteer, philanthropic, experiential, and communication, because some of your programs are going to fall under more than one category. So make sure you pick which category you want it to be under and then stick to that. As I mentioned, we literally have a guide where we're like, okay, volunteer is this, this, and this event, experiential is this, this, and this event. So in future years, or in future Jenna, Monica, and Crystal's, people can help keep that information free flowing and come and bring it so that way we're not suddenly seeing a drastic change because we've counted one thing in this category for so long and now we're counting it in this. I also want to point out this is not the only data we track. This is the data CASE is looking for, but we count so much more than that. AEM does help tell some of your narrative, but it is not the be all end all of telling all of your story and all of the impact that we make and all of the things that we do. So we would encourage you to not lose track of some of those other things that have helped you make a lot of inroads, whether that's with your administration or with your alumni, or tell the impact narrative of your work. Keep tracking some of those things, because as we've seen, sometimes CASE will start incorporating that. And thank God we already had that in place, because it made it so much easier in the future to start incorporating it into the surveys. We'd also recommend starting talking to your partners really early. If you have not had that meeting, have it now. Data isn't due till December, but you're going to want to start talking about it now, because you'll stop collecting your data in June, and then you got 6 months to finish making sure that everything is where it needs to be and all of your data is ready to be run so you can put it in. I'm sure you covered this in the last session, but CASE even has multiple options of the type of survey you take, whether that's a very simple format or a very complicated format. Because we've been tracking so long, we do the complicated format. But there's some years where I can't get all the numbers that I have in years past because something blew up or something happened and it shifted. So make sure that you're also independently keeping track of the programs that are important to you.
I also wanted to add for early communication, and we talked about partnerships, especially with advancement services and institutional research, but we also have some really, really key partnerships with departments, organizations, and colleges on campuses. And that's actually another thing that CASE tracks, is how many of events are considered partnership events. Simple things like how many are virtual, in person. So again, those are things that you can start tracking throughout the year as you're already gathering your data for your events, but also just keeping that communication with those campus colleagues open, because sometimes they have events we don't know about. And if they don't tell us, they don't give us the information, it does not make it into our database, which means it's not counted for CASE. So really just having those conversations, establishing those partnerships now, trying to get as much information as possible, and then keeping those definitions consistent so you can track it throughout the year.
And now we can leverage the fact that our performance on this survey dictates presidential performance. And presidents will be assessed on how many alumni we have volunteering, how many alumni we have attending events, which is so fantastic for the impact narrative of the work we do, and might help you gain some leverage against those departments that have held out or maybe been a little bit more difficult to get on board. Now they have to, right? It's not an option. All right, good luck and happy data gathering. Like I said, we're here to help. It really is one of those, like, you eat an elephant one bite at a time. Start somewhere. And as you get stuck, figure it out or give us a call. We're happy to help at any time. Like I said, we've been through this. Every time CASE changes it, we have to relearn it too. So we know where you guys are at. We know what that process is like, and we're happy to assist. Any questions for us?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Crystal and team. There are a few that I'll run at you. Folks are wondering if you could share a little bit more about how institutional research is involved. Is it that they're contributing data from university systems that aren't in Ellucian, or are they just involved in preparing the data for reporting?
They're prepared and preparing the data for reporting. So we track everything through Advance. Then it's pulled down by Advancement Services, and then they're the ones who are like, okay, here's your 175,000 rows of data, and they use their mechanisms to be like, here's how many you have in every degree category, here's how many you have participating in the different, because you have to do only experiential, only philanthropic, and then every combination thereof. So they help supply that with their licenses and whatnot that they have, magic that they work in that department.
Awesome. So mostly matching the engagement to the individual people, like constituent ideas that exist for your alumni, right?
Like, it will be in that large report that we send out, but because the data is so intensive, like, it would crash your Excel if you tried to open it. But they have the mechanisms in place to be able to run those really large data sets. And because we supply them the information that we need to get out of it, they're able to kind of reverse engineer to run the reports to get us the information that we need.
Awesome. Okay.
So they're not contributing to it, but they are helping us crunch the numbers.
Excellent. Yes, they're real good at that. Next question here from Jen. What do you use to collect information from other departments, like the $5 gifts to the food pantry? Is it a Google form or another product?
Monica, you want to tackle that one, how you did the fundraising forms?
Yeah, sure. So we just use well, it's just a smaller version of our gift transmittal form. I know some of us in advancement services and those who have to fill out the forms, especially our fundraising officers, hate to fill them out because sometimes they're long and lengthy. And over there in basic needs and in our clothing, our career clothing closet, it's a very small version. So it's basically the name, their address if they're new, and then their amount. So we have an amount to put in the system, and usually it's always low level, so we don't really audit it too much on that doesn't seem right, and they're the ones reporting it. But yeah, it's just basically a smaller version, and then they send it to us monthly on an Excel sheet with the backup.
Awesome. Thank you, Monica. Next question here from Christina. Do you have a sample of what campus communication looked like to partners, and what data do they share with you?
What data do they share with us?
Mm-hmm. Maybe like a general sense of what you might be collecting from a different unit on campus.
We've tied it into our other initiatives when we're trying to get like alumni data updates. Who is coming to campus? What are they doing there? So it's a very generic, what's going on in your area type thing. I also make the rounds at least twice a year, if not more often, depending on if a new chair comes in, where I present to every dean's council about here's what's going on in alumni. Hey, we have this survey. Here's our results from last year. Here's what your college looked like compared to all the other colleges and levels in terms of participation and volunteering. And our deans are very competitive. So then they're like, oh, what do you mean this college has more than I have? And then they're more inclined to let us be engaged with like Professor for a Day and our mentoring programs because it helps beef up their numbers. So we really leverage that competitive spirit in addition to giving an easy reporting thing. But if they want to email me and say I have 3 alumni, I'll take it. If they want to send me a form, I'll take it. Like any way they want to give me information, like via carrier pigeon, I don't care. It counts towards my numbers. Like I'll take it.
That was my question, Crystal, whether or not you have a form that you're like enter date and name of event and blah, 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 or do you just have them send it to you however they want to send it to you and you interpret it? That was kind of more like my question.
They have asked for a form. We have made that form. I think one person has used it. We mainly get it through like Teams chats or emails, but they like to be like, send us the form so we can have it. So we have one to say that we do, but I will say it's not our most used way of us collecting information. I tend to get a lot through like conversations.
We
Noted.
do also try to have as many registration forms for events as possible through our department. So we'll share that information with them as far as who's attending, but we'll go ahead and collect the information so we can get their advance IDs and really record that information appropriately. If they have it separately, if they didn't run their registration through us, we ask them to send us the Excel sheet as soon as possible. But ideally, we're also for the events and the volunteer, the experiential pieces, we're actually doing the registration ourselves so we can track that internally.
So if they're hosting an event, we'll say, we'll do registration for you. So that way it has to run through us. So that way we have the data we need and they see us as being a partner.
Does that mean you need their hospitality forms in order to be able to create those events?
They have to handle all of the logistics for the events. We handle their registration. So they're handling catering and room reservation and all of that.
Yeah.
I don't have the bandwidth to do all that as much as I wish we did, but we will handle emails, invitations that go out because it helps with our communication numbers. And then we'll also handle all of their registration that comes in for that event. We can talk more too, Christina, if you want to go through that.
Yeah. So owning as much of it as you can kind of do with the bandwidth that you have available. But it sounds like particularly those key points where you'll get the most helpful data for this reporting. Awesome. One more question came in from Stephanie. She's wondering, how do you market it as quote unquote your numbers or the president's numbers?
So when you were talking about deans, Crystal, I was just thinking like if I say my numbers, no one's going to want the alumni office to take credit for what they've done, right? So is that what you say when you're out there with them, or have you found other ways to get folks on board?
No, we leverage their competition by being like, Stephanie, thank you for dean of this college for letting us do stuff. Look at how many of your alumni were engaged last year.
Yeah.
Thanks to the great work of your faculty and your
Yeah.
admin staff putting on stuff. Wow, looks so great. But unfortunately, Bill at Fullerton did a little better. Like, how do we help you beat Bill next year? And then we leverage it that way. So we give them all the credit in the room. We tell them
Okay.
it's their alumni, Just help us help you tell your story. So the more you do, the more we can champion you to the administration.
Yep. Cool. Thank you.
Awesome. That's all the questions through the Q&A pod. I'll pause briefly in case anybody has another one. They're welcome to electronically raise their hand so they can pop up out of the beautiful ocean of Zoom windows we have here. Travis, please go ahead.
Just reflecting from before and after, what were the lowest hanging fruit? Like, we weren't measuring this, we are measuring this now, and we were surprised by what? Like, what's your epiphany?
You want to take that one?
I mean, yeah, I'm like, we were tracking so much before, but I also think it's that volunteer piece because I think everything before we counted as experiential, just coming to a mixer, coming to an event on campus. And when we really reflected on like the volunteer aspect, there were so many ways to build that in to existing events that we were able to, I think, increase those numbers more intentionally after we started tracking. Like I think before everything was mostly experiential, then after we really built in that volunteer component.
Do you have an example of how you built volunteerism into an event?
I think like Crystal mentioned, our day of service was probably our biggest one, and it was definitely a big draw. It's still a big draw every year, the Coyote Cares Day food packing party that we do. But we were able to work with like the admissions and orientations team to build like ambassador programs for our alumni. So it's a program that they were actually already doing that we were able to incorporate alumni as like volunteers to come and speak to incoming students or to outreach to them through email to let them know like, hey, I'm here as a resource for you. I'm here to answer any questions and really create that connection early on. So again, it's something that was already existing on campus that we weren't necessarily tracking before, but now we were able to say, hey, yeah, we do have alumni that are willing to sign up for that program. And we're able to add, I mean, it's not very many right now, Crystal, maybe like 15, 20.
For the ambassadors, yeah.
To the ambassadors, yeah. So that's still a fairly new program, but really able to see how we can incorporate that into existing programs we were already running.
We also looked at things like a mixer that we were having. Okay, can we leverage that to have alumni talk, like give a piece of advice there? Or could we leverage that for them to talk about career opportunities and experiences? And suddenly I took something that was social and I made it career progression, and that made it volunteer. I think you'll find when you start actually going through your programs and getting down to what is this and what does it mean, it's going to illuminate a heck of a lot more than you might think right now. That took some negotiation even amongst our team because we're like, no, I think this event is this. And someone would say, no, I think it's that. And then we really had to drill down into why is it important and what's the driving factor. And then also we could use that as an argument of like, we should not be doing this anymore. If it's not hitting these metrics and this is what's being counted, then we need to let it go, or we need to adapt it in a way where it does organically fit amongst the rest of our programs. Another low-hanging fruit is like the forms that Monica put together. People were dropping stuff off at the den all the time, or we have a professional clothing closet through our career center where people can give their gently used professional clothes. They were just getting donations in, and that was an easy way for us to say, fill out this 3 or 4 line form, and now suddenly we've captured that information from the individual, we have a gift in kind, and we're able to count it towards our philanthropy.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Looks like we got 2 more questions that came in. One's kind of a repeat. Folks are still trying to wrap their head around what institutional research provides. It sounds like they just kind of help you guys crunch the numbers there. Not sure if you guys want to add anything further, Crystal or Jenna.
Yeah, so our office really provides the raw data. This many alumni via these IDs attended this event or did this volunteer experience. We provide that to Advancement Services, who then gets that into our database. But now all that information is sitting in our database as like activity codes. So this event tied to this ID. Institutional research was able to output all of that data based on the definitions we provided them. So all of these activity codes are now going to be labeled as volunteer. These activity codes are going to be labeled as experiential, communication, etc. They were able to output all of that information to summation totals, right? So 2,000 alumni participated volunteer this last year. And we, because of all those crossovers, right, philanthropic and communication, just philanthropic, all of those different like crossovers and combinations, they're able to actually run the numbers so that they can give us an output. And it's literally for me, for CASE now, just copy and paste. I can take the table that they give us with those raw summation numbers all added up, totaled, and copy and paste that into the survey. So we don't actually have to run any of the numbers. We just have to keep up with the events throughout the year, making sure we're getting that information to advancement services with those constituent IDs. And then at the end of the year, they can run that report and we'll get an output that we can literally just copy and paste into the survey.
Sounds exciting. We'll be the whole CSU will be there soon, I hope. Thank you for sharing, Jenna. Okay, last question before we jump to the next campus presentation. Sarah was wondering, do your alumni volunteers on campus have to go through a campus volunteer training?
No. We have been very specific with our HR department because that's always their first question. Most of the time they're not dealing with minors and they're not doing anything that would require that type of like formalization or insurance necessity. That sometimes does require a VP to VP conversation because certain words trigger certain processes, right? But once you start looking at critically, what is this? Analytically, what does it mean? And then functionally, what do we have to do? That sometimes gives you a different answer than that trigger would give you. So we've been very, very strong on the no, they do not need to go through a formal volunteer process because that is not the nature of the work that they are doing. I have a lot to say about that, but this is being recorded.
You articulated so succinctly and concisely there. It sounds like you have a lot of practice doing it. So thank you. Thank you, Crystal. I think some folks might be giving you a call later. Awesome. Well, big thanks to the San Bernardino team. You guys are welcome to use your reactions button to give them a round of applause, and hopefully we get the little burst that comes up because that's always exciting. And with that, we'll use that same applause to welcome to the focus the Cal Poly Pomona team so they can share their presentation.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Robert Jackman, Interim Director of Advancement Analytics and Strategic Data Initiatives at Cal Poly Pomona. I'm going to be the MC for our team today because two of my colleagues are here. One of them has been running commencement for the last 10 days, and the other one was recently retired. So you'll hear a lot from me, but these two other folks who have been with our division for both 25 years, I feel like they're the real leaders of our AEM process. So I don't know, Melissa and then Lincoln, if you want to go ahead and also introduce yourselves.
Hi, Melissa Reardon, Assistant Vice President for Alumni and External Relations. Nice to see everybody. Thank you for having us also.
Hi, Lincoln Shoemate, programmer, retired.
So I think we're gonna talk a lot, maybe from more of a technical perspective today, though I know Melissa is really the pioneer for AEM on our campus. She's going to give some background and talking about how we started tracking alumni engagement. And then Lincoln and I are going to go back and forth to talk about how we do data management in our CRM for alumni data and give some of our insights into finishing the survey. We have an internal data team within our university advancement shop that's led by me and also one of our AVPs who's the COO. So we may have a little bit of a different approach than you just heard about than in San Bernardino, where they're working with IR. Most of our data work is staying completely within our division. So I'm going to turn it over to Melissa to kind of talk about how we started doing the AM and our background.
Thank you, Robert. So we started at Cal Poly Pomona doing the AEM in 2020, the 2019-2020 year. And the first thing I did after I called Crystal at San Bernardino and asked her a million questions is we started to build the airplane while we were flying it. So while we were kind of setting up internally, we began really working collaboratively with Advancement Services. Our Director of Advancement Services at that time started reaching out across the CSU to get some best practices as well, working with advancement analytics. Development is a huge part of the process, as are the colleges and IT. We started really working with our Vice President's office to ensure that we were getting the support to reach out to different folks across campus. And also we make sure that we include our vice president in a lot of the communication. And also we sit down with her before we submit anything, just so that she's comfortable helping to tell our story, because it's really important to have that partnership. Unlike San Bernardino, we actually do all of our own data entry. I have one FTE position in my office that's dedicated to the AEM. It's in her job description. So she actually creates the event codes for 70 to 80 events per year. She does all of the data entry for those events. So if we're using Razor's Edge, it's very easy to just go in and check mark who's shown up, who's not been there, who was there. And also we use Eventbrite for a lot of our free events. What we do with that is we pull it into an Excel spreadsheet, and we use something called Importomatic within Razor's Edge to get that data into the system. And she's been really the expert on that. And she was trained by Advancement Services to do that. So it's kind of a shared position, even though she's in my shop. She does manage all of the communication also, in regard to getting that into the system. We use Constant Contact. So she's looking at the opens and getting that data into the system. That includes survey respondents and class notes. We do an annual survey, an alumni engagement survey, and we get about, I think right now we're at like 700-ish responses. So all of those are going to get pulled in here before the end of June. So she's got a big push to do that. We do not give alumni data to campus constituents. So we're not giving them to colleges when they're doing events. We actually do all of the alumni communication. We send out about 300 emails per year, and that's the best way for us to track communication. And also it kind of puts us in the know in regard to what events are happening across campus. I know some of the other campuses do this, but we actually do offer free parking to alumni volunteers. So I work collaboratively with our development officers and with different parts of campus. And if they have an alum coming back to, guest lecture in a class or to participate in an activity, we love to know who they are. We want to put them in the system, and we will give them free parking as a thank you. So that is something we've done to really try to build those volunteer numbers. She's also helping to work with the development team to make sure our chapter leaders, board leaders, college advisory leaders are all in the system. We use People Grow for mentoring, so she's also transferring all of that information. And then she's helping to track some of our larger volunteer events, which include Professor for a Day in the Dinner program. So I was able to update her job description a few years ago because we realized that it's just so much information, and it's a bit unwieldy, and it's nice having one person centrally, like in our office, that has an understanding of what's happening campus wide, and she has an idea of what needs to go in the system and what really doesn't fit in the system. Next slide. So this is an actual image that lived on my whiteboard for like 2 years when we were starting to really get serious about what we were doing. And we really, again, started to meet with those stakeholders and campus partners. And it was a bit of a challenge. I think at first, some of our friends across campus were wondering why we were doing this. We're the alumni office. We're just here to have events. But it was a definite shift to get them to understand that alumni work isn't just qualitative, it's also quantitative. And we need to be able to understand who's coming to campus, how they're engaging, what they're doing, and how that really falls in line with the story of philanthropy. So it was a huge shift, but we did it, and it's ongoing because obviously deans, come in, come out, department chairs change. So it's an ongoing practice. After that, we began really looking at what we could identify and enter, much like San Bernardino mentioned before. Not everything that we do fits into the AAM. And some really big things we do, we couldn't figure out how to get it into the AAM. So like some of the sporting events. So there was some trial and error involved in that, but we kind of renamed our different modes. So we call communication our Bronco Pride, and that's, our newsletters and our different sites that we have on campus and what we can track, and all of the alumni college newsletters that we send out, and all the chapter communication. So we do have 9 alumni chapters, and we do manage all of their communication. We don't give any of the chapters data. Some folks do opt in, so a lot of the officers will communicate with each other. But if they're doing an event If they're doing a communication, we manage that. We like everything to look like it's from Cal Poly Pomona. We want it branded the right way. So we've actually just taken that on, and I have someone in our office who manages that. Our experiential column, that's about building the Bronco network. So that's really about all the different events that are happening on campus. We don't really track what's happening in athletics. It's just not attainable. It's so hard. But we are tracking other parts of campus when they're having their large, celebrations, their anniversaries, that kind of thing. So we do manage a lot of that for them. And then we on our campus for the last few years under our former university president had a real big push on career readiness. So it was the Future of Work initiative. It's part of our strategic plan. It's a very important part of the university. So we really pivoted our volunteerism to really be around the future of work. So we started to implement more in regard to career readiness. We hosted a career readiness conference, which is coming back this year. We implemented a coaching program, which I think I just listed twice. Sorry about that. And then Job Shadow. So coaching and Job Shadow came a little bit later, but those are different things that we've been really trying to utilize to build that volunteer aspect. And it's growing. It's taken a little bit of time, but we're getting there. So again, this lived on my wall for a few years, and it changes and it ebbs and it flows, but it's a huge part of what we do. So I'll hand it back to Robert.
So I've just been part of our AM process at the campus for about the last year and a half. And I approach things from more of a kind of technical and data background. I used to work in our IR office at Cal Poly Pomona before coming over and forming a data team within University Advancement. So this will echo some of the things that Melissa said, but thinking from our perspective as the data shop. So we really have to have an active and engaged partnership across our division, in our forward-facing units who are dealing with alumni, that are running the events, that are doing the volunteer programs, that are sending communications. So really, Melissa's team and then also our annual giving team are very key, that we have excellent relationships, that we're talking with them a lot to think about how they're doing their work and how that data is being captured right as they're running these events or sending these communications. So within CPP, we actually have a dedicated cross-functional team that I lead that focuses on our AM, our VSC, and our dashboard infrastructure. And so that's my shop, analytics. We have a data admin team, gift processing, and IT. And we meet on a weekly basis. We're not always necessarily talking about the AM, but it's one of these topics. And so if there are issues throughout the year in terms of the way that we're collecting data or putting it into our system, we're meeting weekly to talk about that with all our data partners. And we have this is going beyond how we maybe use the information once we get it in. We sort of have a two-tiered approach to how we use data within our division. We have our data admin team that's in advancement services. They're helping folks with events, contacts lists, sort of standardized research when it comes to information that we need on alumni. My team is doing more strategic and bespoke analysis. We're building dashboards, we're building reports, doing that sort of thing. And then we're a Razor's Edge campus, so this is the hub of our data ecosystem. Our group is in there a lot of the time. And so we think in terms of like active management of our AEM data sources. If this is just sort of a very high level mapping of how my team thinks about how different parts of the AEM come into Razor's Edge. So as Melissa said, she has a dedicated team member. A large majority of our AE information throughout the year comes in the volunteer information, communications, experiential, that's coming from her team. Annual Giving also does a lot of communication with our alumni. So they're using Constant Contact and other tools. So we partner with them to kind of make sure that we get a good sense of how that data will be pulled out of Constant Contact and put into Razor's Edge. And then gift processing, we also work really closely with them on the philanthropic side of things. They're in our weekly meeting. They're kind of reconciling and reviewing the data on a monthly basis. So we try and be proactive throughout the year to each of these teams to think about how that information is getting into our database. So we're working to continue to standardize the way that this data gets in. There's a flow of some things that are ongoing and some things that we do in batches. So communication, usually we're bringing that information back into the system in batches, set times during the year when we're getting the emails or other things that are going out. Melissa's team is really good for the volunteer and experiential. They're getting that stuff right into the database on an ongoing, near real-time basis, so we can see that it's in there. And then philanthropic is also something that's happening daily. And then each month, as we meet as a group, we reconcile to make sure that the philanthropic information that has, all the donations and other things, whether it's a closed closet, some other stuff, those type of donations have been batched and are properly captured. We just think, as I think I'm stressing, this communication within our division is really important, because there are evolving ways that Melissa, her team, or other parts of the campus, it's the colleges, it's annual giving, that they're connecting with our alumni. So we need to be talking with them a lot to understand if there's a new avenue that they're working in, how do we capture this and put it in the AM? Excuse me. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in the next section, but we're actually going to be transitioning to a quarterly model in the way that we look at the AEM. And this is all thanks to Lincoln. We're going to show you what he did on the programming side that will allow us to kind of run our AEM data. We could have done it even monthly, but we're working it quarterly. And that's going to be for us to kind of go throughout the year to really understand those metrics at that level. So some survey insights. I'm going to turn it back over to Melissa to kind of talk about from her perspective, and then we're going to finish off with a little more technical discussion.
So one of the things I just wanted to mention is it's really important to ensure that your efforts do translate to a story. So when we first did the AM report, we were walking around with the PDF file that you get from, hitting send, and it's this ugly document. It's just not pretty, and it's not a really good snapshot of anything. And then the more we were doing this report, we realized benchmarking year over year was crucial, because you look at the numbers and you don't know what they mean or what they really apply to. So what we do every year is we build out some other information, and we share this with the development team, we share this with the deans, we share this with the alumni board, any volunteer, so they can see what we're doing and how we're tracking. And sometimes they'll look at it and say, like this year, wow, it seemed like there were more volunteer opportunities. What happened? So we try to make sure we keep this in front of everybody, because this is, to us, very important. So really contextualize those findings and ensure you're putting in other information, because what the AEM doesn't give you when you print it out at first is you kind of have to hunt for it. What do the numbers actually mean? You have to really look at that total degree number, total contactable alumni. We're one of the campuses that we do not count you as an alum if you have not graduated. And I know that's really controversial, but we really focus on those alums who have a degree from our institution. And since we've been doing the AEM, we realize that it's even more important, now than ever. So we really do focus on that and keeping the data clean. And then the philanthropic numbers do come in from the VSE, and then we input the other areas. We also look at all four modes, and any of the four modes. And we're always trying to increase the all four modes. It's impossible, but it's a goal. I also wanted to mention trial and error. We're still working on our workflow process. Every year I feel like I, now go to Robert and say, oh no, I think I forgot to enter something, or I think we did something wrong. And this year's not an exception. But don't beat yourself up, because it's, we're kind of learning as we go. And I just wanted to also stress, alumni work is indeed quantitative. It is not just qualitative. And these numbers are really important when you're trying to get more staff in place, because you can show, look, I have this many people coming to events. We are doing a lot of events. We need support, or we need resources. So at first, I know our development team was like, wait, we're the ones that are able to talk in numbers, but it's really important that the alumni office has a seat at the table and can use the numbers to translate into an opportunity to get more resources. So I just wanted to kind of end my slides with that, and I'm going to send it back to Robert.
So I'd say, some lessons that we've learned, and I'll talk about the evolution of the process from before when I was on the campus to where we are now. Invest a lot of time up front now in your AM output model. If you're able to automate things, that's awesome. Try and keep it as straightforward as possible. In our viewing, Lincoln and I kind of reviewed the AM since its inception. It's very static. So And, we never know if that's going to be the case. Some of us work with the VSC, that changes year to year. But the core approach to generating that survey, it's unlikely to really change. So something that you build now, if you spend time doing a durable process, I think that's going to be valuable for you for many years to come. And then also, we're really trying to think about now that the system is going to be requiring this, how do we continue to use this data to provide insights to our division just beyond reporting to the CO, reporting to CASE? So we're doing some trend analysis, and I'll show you what Lincoln built that allows us to do that. And we're also trying to do check-ins across the year in terms of now this quarterly work. So quick note, I mean, you've probably all seen this already. We spend a lot of time reading this document. Like really understanding this is incredibly helpful. You take some time. It takes, a little trial and error, as some other folks have said. But really this document, we spend a lot of time just knowing it back and forth. This helps us get comfortable with the process. I can talk about what we used to do. And this is something that was challenging at the time when we started. Our EAM historical process was run out of Razor's Edge. It was very clunky, but I think the team that was here at the time did the best they could with what they had. So it was a process that had 17 different exports. There was actually almost basically a query for every single number within the AEM, and then manual entry of all our data into like one spreadsheet. So you can imagine the amount of hours that this was taking our team. When I came on board, there was some discussion about, well, if there's a way we could do this quicker and more efficiently, that would be helpful. Even though this process was very accurate, it was very time consuming. And so what we transitioned to, and I want to Lincoln jump in here where he feels comfortable, is we basically built an AEM pipeline workflow in partnership with IT. And when I say IT, it's Lincoln. We streamlined our whole AEM process end to end. We cut down the exports more than half. And I can actually say we can do our AEM process in a couple of minutes now. So I'm going to show what that looks like in a minute. But Lincoln using an AI client, and I'm going to say I'm a little bit of an AI skeptic up to this point, but Lincoln convinced me, and the technology has gone really far in, say, the last 6 months, that he was able to, him programming in partnership with the AI, he basically built us a custom AEM app. It is a guided interface, it has backups, it has validation, and it's also future-proofed against case guidance. So something that's exciting is you could take that PDF and the system will ingest it, see if there are any changes, and it would reconfigure the way that this app would output the data for us. It also allows us to build multi-year trend dashboards, and it's very ease of use. So, I mean, we have some folks in our team that are not nearly as technically skilled as Lincoln, and he built this for us in a way that allows any staff member to just open this little app and do our AM front to back. Lincoln, before I show the video quickly, anything else you want to share?
I would just add that I was new to the AEM process this year, really. I had been doing the VSE before and was trying to do it in Tableau, and that was clunky. And now that I was able to develop a VSE pipeline first, and that feeds some of that philanthropic data into the AEM. And so now, there's basically two processes, one for the VSE and one for the AEM, that very similar.
Right. So I would say, I mean, Lincoln just recently retired, but I already saw a couple of people in the chat. He's still programming in his spare time. He's still working on projects. So we'll say if there's other campuses that need assistance with this, he's the type of person that folks may want to reach out to. I know we're just at time, so I won't show the whole video, but you can see the screen. This is basically it's a custom box. We have something similar for the VSC as well. If I play the video, so this is, I mean, the other reason we couldn't do this live is because this does take up a lot of computer bandwidth to run. It would slow down the share. But basically the system, as you can see, it's kind of but there's basically 7 stages in it. The system will take the data right out of Razor's Edge. It's loading it in, it's going to check it, it's going to validate it, and then it can generate a number of ways that we can look at the data. So I don't know, I know, Sam, we're right at time. I don't know if this video, I mean, this is interesting. I think maybe we could share this video offline with the rest of the group.
We can give you some grace on time. This is interesting.
Okay. So I mean, it's running. You can see that the system's computing. So I said this whole video is about 2.5 minutes. We can now run our AEM process in around 2 minutes. As it gets toward the end, I can see if I can speed it up. So this is what the output looks like. So immediately it'll just create an Excel that has all of our AEM stuff all correlated straight out of our database right into a spreadsheet. And then the other thing, we'll keep moving it along. This is a great feature that Lincoln built as well. So all that, as I kind of glazed over in our PowerPoint, you can go back to any constituent or any transaction or anything in the data and check it. So we have the ability to see the underlying data, to kind of do individual content checks. So there's a lookup that he built that will go back to any single data point that's in the system. And then past it. Oh, here it is. So there's basically an HTML thing where we can do trends and compare our AEM from year to year. So the system will input something. This is just looking at the last 2 fiscal years, but we could do more. So any data that's in the system allows us to kind of have a built-in set of graphs and systems to do a comparison right out. So I know I went a little bit over time, but I would say, I mean, I just want to highlight, like, I project manage a lot of this, and we have an internal data team, but Lincoln is really the star of our work. And he basically gave us a gift before he retired because we had that manual process that was taking our team, maybe hundreds of hours. And now that's something that we can do in minutes, and it's really freed us up to look at this data in a more strategic way and do it throughout the year. So thank you for letting us share. Apologies for being a few minutes over, and I think we're happy to take questions.
No worries at all. Thank you guys for sharing so much. And just following kind of the trend in the chat there, would love to start a conversation about a way that we can share that with other campuses. I'd imagine it's probably a more natural fit to the other ones that are on RE. But yeah, definitely from my office, we'd love to start that conversation. Alrighty. We did get a couple of questions. The first one is, folks are wondering if CPP is using RENXT for your event registration and how your team is tracking attendance at events.
We are using it mostly for events that are paid. So we use Eventbrite for free events just because it's so easy. But for anything with a donation or a gift or a fee, we do use Razor's Edge. And we do have our events department actually uses it more than the alumni department even. But it's actually it's been really seamless for us. At first it wasn't, but now we're getting better. If you need any advice, please reach out.
And for tracking attendance, the system is pretty helpful in that as well.
It is, yeah, because the AEM allows you to track people who register for an event but don't attend. So what we do is after the event, we just go in and we check mark people who were actually there, and then it goes right into the system pretty easily.
The next one's kind of a clarifying question on one of the slides. Sinem was looking at slide 11. In case you guys want to scroll back to that one. But Sinem, and you're welcome to jump off of mute here, but I think she's trying to see.
Hi, Sam.
Yes, go ahead, Sinem.
Okay. So I was looking at it and I thought, okay, so if they're only engaged using volunteering, or if they only got like an email, like it's just a communication or just a volunteer, then they'll show up under that column. But if they did, let's say, volunteer and experiential, then it will be in the last column. So you're not counting one person more than once across any row. Is that why those two columns at the end exist? To be able to count those people engaged in mixed modes?
Yes. Yeah. So we can only count a volunteer if they volunteer one time, even if they're coming to campus 10 times. So they're only going to be in the volunteer column once. And so all of the philanthropic, volunteer, experiential, and communication are just the one time. The all four is if they are, volunteering and making a gift. And then the all four, that one is, or any of the four is the largest because it's pretty much all of them kind of put together.
Yeah.
And if we look at the actual AAM, I mean the AM wants every I mean this is the summary, but the AM wants every permutation of this. So it's like volunteer plus experiential, experiential plus communication, communication plus philanthropy. So there's a matrix that they ask for that's basically every permutation of the four, and then all four, any four. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I understand.
Yeah, great to have that breakout because it'll mirror a lot of what's in the survey. Lincoln got to the question in the chat about how the tool connects to the CRM. Want to pause here for another couple seconds in case anybody else has other questions or feedback to the CPP group.
And by the way, I'm not a retired annuitant yet
Yeah,
because I just
we have to
recently
wait a couple
retired.
months. Yes.
Yeah, you have to wait till yeah.
Well, we have a standing offer to Lincoln as soon as the time window expires, he has a standing offer to come back. But you know, yeah, I'm sure he wants to enjoy his retirement a little bit first, and we will have that discussion. Okay, he's shaking his head, but
I can imagine there's going to be a bidding war as soon as that time is up. So Lincoln will let you manage that one. Awesome.
Let
Alrighty,
me
last
just
call.
say, because I had the AI help, I did both those pipelines in about 2 to 3 months from beginning to almost from beginning to end. Not quite beginning to end, but so it's amazing how productive, how much stuff I can do now. And so I don't think there's a problem with spreading me too thin. I don't think. I mean, maybe.
We won't abuse your talents, I promise. Awesome. Alrighty, last call for questions for Cal Poly Pomona. Well, thank you guys again. You left us with a lot to think about. We're kind of excited now. And now I want to welcome to the focus the Cal State Long Beach team for them to share their process.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Noemi Guevara. I am the Director of Alumni Engagement, and I am going to ask my co-presenter to introduce herself, Nicole.
Hi, nice to see so many friends. I am Nicole Forrest Boggs. I'm the AVP for Division Operations.
Wonderful. So again, thank you so much for having us here today to present what Cal State Long Beach does. Like Crystal, we are also on advanced CRM, and I think our presentation will touch upon a little bit of everything she talked about, right? Building collaborations around campus, but also your best friend would be advancement services. I talk to Nicole and her team all the time. I know the alumni team is working with them all the time as well for different reasons, whether we're pulling lists, whether we're coding. At Cal State Long Beach, Nicole's team does have a data entry team that is inputting a lot of our data. We also have student assistants on the alumni team that help us manage some of the data that are smaller projects, and we do that in-house. So today, I'd like to talk to you guys a little bit about what we're tracking on the experiential side, our volunteer management, and what we're doing, a little bit about communications, a little bit about our lessons learned, and then Nicole's going to show you how all these pieces come together in our reporting that we're able to share out to our leadership and around campus. So like I said, we are on Web Illusion. I've been on the team for now 19 years, and a lot of this infrastructure of how we track things was already in place. So they've done this for many, many years where they had naming conventions already created. And it's across the board, not only alumni, but also the events team and our development team. Like Melissa's team, we do not share information to our campus partners in regards to alumni list. They have to come through us. If they want an email, if they are sending an event invitation, it has to go through our office and we send it through our constant contact channels. If they are mailing something, they work with Nicole's team and advancement services to get those lists. So that's a way that we've been able to also curate opportunities to code them in our system. So for all of our events and our experiences, we have naming conventions created. We have, and they're all standard, going back many years, right? We have years, we have name of events, and then we also have sources, so that if in the chance we are need to look at these lists, we're able to know whose is what. And for us, we try to code as we go. As we send out invitations, we are coding all those participants as invited. And once they are responding, right, we are coding them as responded. And then after the event, we go back and code that attended. Again, if the numbers are massive, we are doing global codes and sending it over to the advancement team to do it globally. But if they're smaller scale, we'll have a student assistant go through the records and update it from there. And then if we are having meaningful conversations, right, with any of our constituents, we are entering those contact reports, but we are tracking what is a successful engagement and what is an unsuccessful engagement for us. And in practice, kind of this is what it looks like for our coding. Again, we have that source, we have the participant status. I think that's key when we're talking about the AEM. Julie on Nicole's team, she runs a master list, right, of everything we've done in that fiscal year. And that's also like my check to make sure that everyone coded everything. And we've caught things that we've missed when we do that master list pool. I also internally we have our master calendar. So I also see what is missing, right, compared to the list that I'm getting from Advance when we're doing this reporting here. And this is what it looks like on Advance. As you can see, the activity code is there. We have the participation. Like someone mentioned, if you responded and didn't go, that counts in communication, and we just leave you as invited responded. But if you attended, you attended. This box allows us to also insert any comments for any of the attendees on here. And then our volunteers. So about, I think 3 years ago, we used to code our volunteers and the activity table in Advance. So we ended up purchasing, and I know Bale and Fullerton has Galaxy. So when we transitioned over to Galaxy, which is a volunteer management platform, I was looking at Advance, and there is a table on there that does volunteer tracking. So I went to the team and I asked, can we just move all of our volunteer efforts in this table to keep it separate and cleaner? So that's what we ended up doing. So now all of our volunteers live in its own table in our database, separate from that experiential that has a lot of things in that table. So, and we took it a little bit further. So we've came up with a level of matrix of volunteer engagement. We are tracking at what level our volunteers are coming and what they're doing. What I love about Galaxy, the platform, that it has allowed us to collect the volunteer experiences from throughout campus, like a people growth and mentoring that we have made it this institution's mentoring platform. I think we've done the same thing for our Galaxy and our volunteers. So even today, right, commencement volunteers came through Galaxy. Our big preview day, our day at the beach, the campus is using Galaxy. So we are capturing that volunteer experiences from the campus at this time. And we've used it to get inroads, right, with a lot of our campus partners as well. So in practice, again, this is what it looks like. Always tracking the year, what we're doing, and that volunteer level. Our goal moving forward is to also add on hours here, right? As we're thinking of doing an event, right, where we're thanking our volunteers and we're able to showcase how many hours, and that level of commitment, taking it further, is something that we're hopefully gonna step into this next fiscal year for us. And then for our communications, right, aside from the click-throughs of your emails, right, that everyone's tracking, for us, we are tracking our beach touches, which is our emails or the communications our alumni are reaching out to us. We are tracking that. So every time an alumni calls us, an alumni emails us, we're tracking that touch point and we're putting it in advance. We have a private group in LinkedIn, so we are pulling who is asking to join, right? To be part of the private group, we have to verify that you graduated before we allow you, and we pull that profile and we tag you. Of course, contact reports, and we have a social media campaign where we are highlighting our alumni, and we're tracking that as well. Form surveys, and then if people are nominating other alums for Distinguished Alumni and 49 under 49, they're also getting coded on here. For us, I think the big is our advancement services and Nicole's team. They do the data pool. It's all internal. It's all done in-house every year. So it would be start early, create your data structure and your definitions, I think is key for us when you're against time, right? And you're trying to figure out what did you miss or what we're counting in each of the categories. I know I have a document where I've done like a data mapping of what we have to what they're counting. So I have that on the back end for us, but naming conventions I think are key to be able to track your experiential and coding as you go. Like Crystal said, if you wait till the end, it could become a lot. So we do it as we go as much as possible, and then capturing that inbound engagement. And then our volunteer matrix has been very helpful, but making it separate from our activities, I think has been very helpful for us. And I think here I pass it on to Nicole to show us how it all comes together.
Okay, so we do lean heavily into Tableau. Fred Camp is also on the call. Fred's created, we call him Dan's Monster Dashboard. Dan's our vice president. So this is the culmination of all the great work Noemi and our colleagues in our division are doing. So you see at the very top, we have our 5 different buckets: outbound communications, communication engagement, experiential engagement, volunteer engagement, and philanthropy engagement. Go next slide. That's a highlight of the first 2. So you can drill down and see what is making up those 275,000 contacting folks by email predominantly. We also have a chart showing our highs and lows of the cadence. Next slide. There we go. Oh, one more back. Can you go back and with me? There we go. I like this one. The middle side, in particular, volunteer engagement. You can see like mentoring. Mentoring is very popular. And on average, someone volunteers twice, that 1.8 average number of volunteer activities. So an individual typically volunteers on two different buckets. So maybe they're mentoring and they also serve on an advisory board. Next slide. So this is our whole universe. We're looking at how many alums do we have. We do count folks that did not graduate but attended at 12 units. And so here we're looking at what college you graduated from, what degree, what decade, and kind of our age makeup. Next slide. We also look at where folks live. We're predominantly focused in the Long Beach vicinity with 58,000 folks. Just sharing, since we have great alumni folks here on the call, just how we're using our data. Next slide. And then this is the earlier piece I had shared, just doing a deeper dive as to how are we reaching out to folks? Who has an address? Who has a mailing address? Who has an email address? To explain that narrative of why do you have 225,000 emails when we have 589,000 people in the system? Well, we only have an email for 68%. So that's what this slide is showing, is just the additional granular data. Next slide. Then we look at who's receiving email, who's receiving an email and a mail piece. This is the donut, who's receiving only mail, And then 38.4% of our population isn't receiving anything. Next slide. Experiential, looking at what type of events people are attending. So is it virtual, in person, by decade, who's attending? Next slide. Volunteering, where are folks interested? We'll see that predominantly 84% of our database is an alum that's volunteering, which is really exciting. Next slide. Philanthropic, so we also want to look at obviously who's donating. So what percent of our alums are donating, or friends of the university, or a very friend-heavy campus? And then what discipline? So on the far left, you see College of Liberal Arts alums are our largest factor over there on the far left-hand side at 29.5%. Next slide. And this is kind of summarizing. Cal Poly had that, 4 touch points. And so here we're looking at, who has one, just one communication or one philanthropy, one volunteer. What folks have 2 different, dual, maybe they have a volunteering and they have a philanthropy. 3, maybe it's volunteering, philanthropy, as well as communication. So we can, who's engaged but not a donor, 287 people, and people that are engaging only in the community, 8,029. Next slide. And that's it. And we have Fred on the call if you have any questions about our Tableau reports, or Noemi and Julie Wilson, who does all the heavy lifting for the AEM, can also answer any of your questions regarding that. But we're excited to use this data on a daily basis. I think that's what's great about these dashboards, is we're using them to make decisions today, not waiting till December.
Right. I've used all that data, right, to influence. I just rolled out a new alumni engagement strategic plan, and I looked at so much of that data to influence how we're going to move forward in the next 3 years. And I know when we get back our AEM, kind of like what Melissa did, I put it together and I do share it with our vice president as well. So it is influencing our programs as we move forward as well.
Yeah, I love the way you guys have put it in a very executive friendly presentation too. I'm sure your vice president appreciates it. And I called the kudos out for the breakouts by college, and I think other people were thinking the same thing. That's a nice way to start that kind of competition between the colleges to make sure that they're connecting information back to you all at the alumni office. Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing. Appreciate it there. I don't see any questions in the Q&A, but folks are welcome to electronically raise their hand to ask the Long Beach team any questions there, or maybe compare notes in any way. Awesome. I was kind of wondering, when it comes to any social media tracking, what are you guys kind of focusing on there? I'm imagining probably more comments as opposed to reactions, right?
Yeah, that's something we haven't really dived into. I mean, I've done some playing around with. I could match some names from our Facebook, right? Comments, but it's a manual process, so we really haven't really dived into it a lot. I mean, we've done research to find if there a platform out there, right? We've looked at so many, but there's really no one that's really doing it right at this time. So we haven't really tracked social media.
Yeah, I've heard that there's a lot of stuff that kind of tracks the general engagement, but being able to tie that back to individual people is the tricky part.
Correct.
Melissa says Evertrue is working for them. Melissa, you want to elaborate a little?
It's not actually. We looked into it. I was just going to jump in. We looked into actually going with Evertrue, but it is really expensive. That was the only one that really was going to pass ATI, and it just was too cost prohibitive. So our communication numbers are a lot lower than they should be because we are not tracking anything with social.
And the survey does have those confidence levels to communicate that. So
yes,
at least it's transparent that we're just not tracking all that stuff. Awesome. Travis, what's your thought or question?
Yeah, so for those of you who are doing the survey right now, are you collecting data, this survey data on all of your constituents and then only reporting out on alumni, or have you focused your tracking to be just alumni focused for this reporting?
Everything. We're counting everything because everyone's a prospect, right?
Yeah, everyone.
Pomona, San Bernardino, what about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we're collecting for everyone, and then we overlay the AM required stuff on the alumni constituents.
I'll say we drive this ship for the AEM survey, so we only worry about the alumni stuff. Although, like Pomona said, is controversial. We track anyone who's ever attended a class here. We consider you an alum because you're a prospect. What the rest of the philanthropy team tracks in terms of like people who are prospects or community members or corporations that aren't affiliated with alumni is separate because they don't do a lot of activities and events like we do. So we primarily, or not primarily, we only track alumni engagement.
Thanks, guys. And then from the May 4th webinar, there was an example from somewhere in the country where folks are looking at the different modes and creating kind of like a donor continuum with them. And I have heard of other examples of where they apply that to everybody pretty much in the database that has some engagement. And it's another kind of it's another kind of donor continuum kind of engagement model that some institutions use. So yeah, they're really getting their bang for all the coding and work that goes into organizing the data this way.
Can I add something, Sam? So Jenna, who had to drop off the call but does the data for our team, she actually took all of the data we had through the Alumni Engagement Survey and used that to create like a homegrown alumni engagement score, which allowed us to think of new prospects who we hadn't been with recently or hadn't connected with recently, but we saw were invested in us. And we saw a huge trend in people who started as experiences, moved on to volunteers, and then ended up getting engaged in philanthropy. And so when we applied that to the entire database, we're able to come up with quite a few really good prospects of people who just hadn't been asked to give. So it really helped get buy-in for our philanthropy team.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. There you go.
I saw Valerie's note. Oh, sorry, Sam. It's a good prospect engagement tool. So we have an engagement score. And so we use all this great score to drive that engagement score. So we can see, who are the right folks to focus on to put in a portfolio that has capacity. Just leaning into that data, that 500,000 person pond. It's a very big pond to slice and dice.
Yeah, helps triage a lot of our work there too. Awesome. Thank you, Ryan, for sharing from Sac State. Alrighty, turning it back to the group. Any final questions for any of our presenters? Alrighty. Well, thank you all so much for logging on. My head is full of lots of fun information, and I want to give a lot of kudos to the folks that put together these presentations. It was a couple emails from me and Jody inviting folks to come present for like 20 minutes, and I think these are amazing bits of information and insight here. So thank you all so much. In the chat, I am adding a link to get your feedback on this session. Really just also give us a sense if you guys feel like you guys are ready to complete the survey, or if there's kind of additional training that you all think is needed. And with that, thank you all so much. Good luck surviving commencement for those of you guys that are going into that right now. And take care and have an awesome rest of the week.